Amy, what is our third main topic today?
Our third topic comes to us from JT. Greetings, John and gang. Deadline is reporting that Jeff Loveness, the writer of several Rick and Morty episodes and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, will pen the script for Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. What do you guys think of this, since most of his credits do not come from feature films? Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
Yeah, of course. So like with Avengers: Kang Dynasty, of course, the big first question was who's going to direct it. And Destin is going to the director of Shang-Chi, who's been announced. He's going to direct that. I think that's fabulous. He did such a killer job with Shang-Chi. Cannot wait to see what he does there. But then the next question became up, who's going to write it? And it has now come out. This comes to us from the folks over at Deadline, who wrote the following. After announcing the Avengers: The Kang Dynasty at this year's Comic-Con, Marvel Studios looks to have found their writer, who will now pen the highly anticipated film. Sources tell Deadline that Jeff Loveness, who recently wrote Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania, will pen Kang Dynasty for Marvel. Loveness will join Destin Daniel Cretton, who has been recently set as the director of the project, with Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, of course, producing. Now, this is interesting on several levels. Number one, Jeff is, of course, directing or writing the Kang story that's going to really get started in Quantumania. Of course, we got introduced to him in Loki, but I think the real story is going to get started here. So you've already got the guy now who is writing the foundation of this character. So it tells me a couple things. Number one, it tells me that it's very, just because the character's in two different things doesn't mean there's a lot of connection. It tells me there's probably more of a connection than we're thinking. So I got to think that it's more than just Kang the character. I think we're going to see themes and storylines that are going to transition from Ant-Man into Avengers: Kang Dynasty. So that's the first thing it tells me. The second thing it tells me is they must really like what he wrote for Ant-Man Quantumania, because if it doesn't matter if it's the precursor to Kang, if they looked at his screenplay and said it was all right, then you do not let him write an Avengers movie. The Avengers movies are their crown jewels. This is what makes them all the money. So you're not going to hand over the writing responsibility to somebody who turned in a script for you that was okay. I would go so far as to say you're not even going to hand it over to a guy who you thought the script was good. They must really like the script he does. Now, how the movie turns out, we'll find out how the third Ant-Man film turns out, but they at least really must have loved the script. Rick and Morty fans, rejoice, because you got a writer from Rick and Morty who's going to do it. I mean, that's probably going to worry some people that they might try to do too much humor, but I mean, coming out of Rick and Morty and an Ant-Man loads a lot of humor in there too. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But number one, there's clearly going to be stronger thematic connections than we even thought. And number two, this must be a sign that they loved what he wrote for Ant-Man 3. Anyway, Rob, you heard about Jeff is now writing Avengers: Kang Dynasty. What do you think about this edition?
Well, I think what's really interesting about this is Rick and Morty does not get enough credit for some of the science fiction concepts. Working in animation doesn't mean he can't apply that to live action too. And clearly, like you pointed out, what Quantumania must have a great script, because what does Quantumania do? It combines a humorous element with probably very heady sci-fi concepts, with the multiverse, with branching timelines and all of that. And you are setting up, as we know, Kang as a big bad in that movie. So it makes perfect sense to me. And I think that once again, I mean, I'd like to know what Avengers are going to be in this movie. I want to know, are there Avengers? Where are the Avengers? Who are the Avengers? Don't know, but I'm sure we're going to know when that movie gets made, and I think it's a good choice.
By the way, can we bring that image up for a second? Tell me you didn't think for a second this was Jake Gyllenhaal's slightly less attractive younger brother. He's got that look. And hey, even being a slightly less attractive Jake Gyllenhaal still means you're more attractive than 99% of the people in the world.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, Amy, you're hearing about this. What do you think of the selection? I was a little bit surprised, but I guess we shouldn't be. But what do you think?
You know, I would be more worried about, his lack of film credits if he hadn't written Quantumania. And, again, as you said, they saw that script. They obviously like something. Something's obviously working. And I think it's really interesting looking at his other credits. I'm seeing a lot of, he's written for the Emmy Awards, the Academy Awards. Looks like he wrote an episode of that show Miracle Workers on top of Rick and Morty. So clearly, to me, that says they must be going with a more comedic twist for the next Avengers, which I'm on board for. I feel like humor in the MCU can be a little hit or miss. So I would say, and like Rob pointed out, Rick and Morty it can get heavier. It does handle a lot of sci-fi tropes. So I think if you're combining someone who has proven between Rick and Morty and whatever he's done with Quantumania that he can handle that, and then really has a good grasp for writing comedy, I think we could end up with something really fun here, which I would be on board for.
By the way, can we bring that image up again?
Which
The Jake Gyllenhaal is Andrew K in the live chat brought up a really, really good point. The one they had Kang and Jeff, the writer, on, brought up a really, really good point. He said a name, and it's like, oh, so because of what Andrew said, I'm going to say this. He looks more like Jake Gyllenhaal and Jared Leto had a baby.
Yes.
That's where it is. So call out to Andrew K in the live chat for that. All right, guys, question is for you. Probably the next biggest box office movie out there is going to be Avengers Kang Dynasty. Now we know who both the director and now the writer is going to be. The writer of Ant-Man Quantumania. What do you think about the choice? Are you a little bit nervous about it? Do you think it makes sense? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and leave those thoughts there.
Hey guys, we want to thank one of the sponsors of today's video, BetterHelp. Let me ask you something. How well would you take care of your car if you knew that was going to be the only car you ever had for your entire life? Well, that's how our brains and our minds work. So why don't we treat them the same way? Because how we take care of our minds will affect how we experience life. So it's important to invest time and care into keeping it healthy. Now, there are plenty of ways to support a healthy brain, like learning a new language or taking power naps, but there's also BetterHelp online therapy. Now, I've talked about this before, but I've never understood the stigma attached to people wanting to seek out ways to improve their mental health. When somebody decides to go to the gym to improve their physical health, we think that's great. Well, that's the same way we need to look at taking care of our mental health as well. BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat-only therapy sessions. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you're not comfortable with that. And it's much more affordable than in-person therapy. So guys, listen, right now, the John Campea Show viewers and listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Campea. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Campea.